It is Thursday, February 19th, and fake spring appears over in South Bend. It was nice while it lasted, guys, but we were able to confirm yesterday that the cold does not bother two of the seven graduate transfers we met, Keon Keelley and Tion Gray, and that's good news because they're going to be facing that for a few winters in South Bend. I am Tim O'Malley, joined today by Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of Football Scoop, and this is Irish Illustrated Insider. Guys, we also met first year defensive line coach Charlie Partridge. Certainly not his first year as a defensive line coach, as we will get into, but that enjoyable conversation as expected. And JB, you've had a chance to review. I want to throw it to you first, kind of your impressions on what you saw and what you read yesterday from the IAC.
Yeah, starting obviously with Charlie Partridge, just the ultimate professional. The guy is, as I've mentioned on the podcast in recent weeks, he is revered by former colleagues at Pitt. He's revered by former colleagues in the NFL. I spoke to one of his former Colts colleagues just yesterday. He asked me if I'd gotten to meet Charlie yet because he knows I spend most of my time in South Bend. I said I had not gotten to meet him yet, but I was very much looking forward to it. And he just said he's one of the really good guys. You can tell, I think, that he commands the room. I think he'll have a command presence with the Notre Dame defensive line group. And I think he'll be a voice that, frankly, with his experience and track record, resonates throughout the program, not just in his defensive line room or even on the defensive side of the ball. But again, he has that cachet that when he talks, and he's not just super long-winded or unnecessary with his talking, but when he talks, people listen. I think in talking with people in the Goog and reading from Keeley and Gray, those guys are very motivated to be in great shape for spring ball and this fall. And then certainly the topic that everyone is talking about is Mylan Graham referencing that, yes, he does actually have to go to class and not just do school online.
Timmy, I think everybody that had an opportunity to speak with Charlie Partridge yesterday was impressed, very cordial, very accommodating. Said that he would learn our names in due time, and so made a strong.
He already made fun of mine, so I'm not sure that's going to
How do you make
right there for that one yet.
How do you make fun of yours?
He asked my name. I told him. He goes, "Well, that tracks."
Oh, okay, got it. Well, that's not making fun. That's just
Yeah, I know.
including you with a Irish contingent. But no, very impressive. And I think one of the things that he pointed out first, which was the lead of my Thursday thoughts today, was that this is his fifth stop with Chris Ash. And I know that there are people that don't like. Well, they didn't like Chris Ash to begin with, and so when he's pursuing coaches that he's worked with before, they're not impressed with that. But we talk about national searches. If you did a national search, Charlie Partridge would pop up whether he had any affiliation with Chris Ash or not. So the five stops, and we talked about a lot of this on our instant analysis yesterday. He's an excellent fit for Notre Dame because he's a good fit for Chris Ash. His resume is tremendous at previous stops, and JB would know better than I. He knows more coaches in the business, but I'm not sure that there are too many in the country that you would place ahead of Charlie Partridge with his background and his teaching ability and his proven track record with pass rush and developing draft choices. And DeForest Buckner is still producing it with the Colts when he was playing for him. So very impressed with everything that we experienced with Charlie Partridge yesterday.
Yeah, I would add also real quickly, especially specific to Partridge, I spoke to yet a different NFL assistant coach last week who has ties to the SEC, who was again talking about Charlie Partridge. And then I talked to some other people back on Rocky Top who have recruited against Charlie Partridge. And again, like nobody has a bad word to say about him, which is just frankly unheard of in that industry. You usually have you don't like a guy for a certain reason. Nobody I've talked to over the balance of the last 7, 8 weeks since Partridge was entering the picture for Notre Dame, nobody has had anything other than super positive feedback for him, very positive memories about enjoying battling him on the recruiting trail and just knowing what you were going to get with him. So, I love the hires that Notre Dame has made to replace some tremendous people in this offseason, but I would rate Charlie Partridge probably an A plus hire.
I think I've only ever heard that about Bob Elliott and Randy Hart, where the other coaches have covered at Notre Dame, that no one has a bad word to say about them as a human or as a coach. I wish I had asked Partridge because he mentioned that coaches have egos, but he and Ash can say things to each other, and with their history to each other, he immediately accepts Ash's thoughts on it, even if he disagrees with it, and vice versa. He even called, he's like, Ash is a back line guy. I'm a defensive line coach. But when he says something, I still listen to that right away. I wanted to ask him if it's easier joining a staff that's all new, because any ego in the room, they're just new egos, but they're thrown out. There's a natural acceptance, I think, of it's all new workers coming into this room for Chris Ash. It is now Chris Ash's defensive scheme and Chris Ash's defensive staff. I mean, Marcus Freeman's as well, but that's much different than what Ash walked into last spring. I always felt like that was not an easy. Replacing Al Golden was the second hard part. Walking into guys that all were there for a long time together and really respected Al Golden had to be tough too.
I think that I didn't consider that, Tim. I think that's an interesting notion. I would think it would be easier for Chris Ash, especially with two of the three new guys having a history with him. Aaron Henry being the other one, not as extensive as it is with Partridge, because him and Partridge played football together in college at Drake. So you go back to that level. But I think that's an interesting point. Hadn't thought about that. Just in general, and Chris Ash should feel a lot more comfortable going into this spring than he did, regardless who's surrounding him. A lot more comfortable second time through than first time through.
Speaking of Aaron Henry, JB, if you heard instant analysis, I accidentally dropped my first Aaron Hayden on Aaron Henry yesterday. Analysis. So the former Tennessee running back, that I think it's over now. I think I've said it enough where we will not go back to that one again, especially after we meet him. I believe it's next week. We met 7 transfers. I spoke with Mylan Graham extensively. TP, I want to throw it to you because you talked to the 2 defensive tackles. Need to stay on theme there. I think it's an interesting Partridge, obviously history with Francis Brew. And then some comments on Tion Gray that I think our listeners will be excited about.
Yeah, I mean, Tion Gray was multiple times brought up DeForest Buckner, he's very familiar with, having played at Oregon. Buckner played at Oregon. He's a legend out there. And so the tales of DeForest Buckner continue to ring true out in Eugene. And he heard them all. And although he said, I'm much larger than he is, my frame is very similar. He wants to, Tim, I said on instant analysis he was 325. When I transcribed, I listened to it a little bit more closely. He's 335. Okay. And so he wants to get down to 315. That's pretty ambitious. That's a lot. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah, that is. Because when you said it, I was like, well, that's not that big of a deal. But now I think it is.
20 pounds it is. But, I think that the residual benefit possibly is that it was Sean Sevillano that reached out to Tion Gray when Gray got there and said, hey, you're with me. And so they've worked out together. And Sevillano's listed at 325 now. I hope that's legit, but I'm sure it is.
It is, yeah. Speaking
Speaking of legit weights, you're going to want to bring up one today, Tim, that we validated. Right. But I think, the fact that Gray seems so committed, he's got a diet, a nutrition that Notre Dame has prescribed for him. He's hell-bent on getting that done. And so that can only help. Sevillano at 325, that's probably a pretty good number. Now you got to keep it off. And I think Gray will help him do that. So it's DeForest Buckner, it's the nutrition, the diet, and it's also being back home. I talked to him about culture shot out in Oregon because I'm familiar with that area, but he just wanted to be closer to home. He wanted to be near St. Louis. He mentioned it multiple times to multiple people asking questions, and so he feels like he's a 5.5 hour drive away from home. And I asked him about the culture shock in Notre Dame. He says, hey, man, I'm in the Midwest. I'm comfortable here. And it's all about family. His uncles played a significant role in his decision to choose Notre Dame. And when they got on social media and there was talk about him, Tion Gray, he saw all this feedback from Notre Dame fans. And it was like, all right, this is a place where I'm really wanted by the fans. So it all worked out really well. And I think him and Brew, those are two really big in the case of Gray and strong in the case of Brew defensive tackles that I think are really going to add to the barriers in the middle of that defensive line, which is Jason Onye and Elijah Hughes. That's your front four. I would imagine Brew steps into the starting lineup
I
and
mean, we'll
and
figure that one out along the way.
yeah, we'll figure it out because I'm not sure about nose and where Onye ends up based upon how Charlie Partridge looks at his position. But I think that's really well fortified with some other guys that have dabbled at defensive tackle that have to earn their third team spot.
Also, I spoke with Mylan Graham and Drew spoke with Quincy Porter. Porter did not elucidate on the nature of his injury. He's involved in winter conditioning. He really wouldn't go any farther into that, but he did mention cleanup. So if the word cleanup is accurate, that's good news, and that's what I was able to gather from the Ohio State writers as well, without anything on the record. They are having trouble finding something on the record for it, but that's why they believe it should be a cleanup. Mylan Graham, I didn't really realize that his second thought about coming to Notre Dame was when Quincy Porter accepted. He did not know that was going to happen.
That's pretty wild, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because all of a sudden you're looking at, I'm sure he didn't know the number, but all of a sudden you're thinking there's plenty of receivers. It's not like these guys ever know there's 15 receivers in a room, but they do know of Faison and Greathouse, and then Quincy Porter's there, and in your mind, that's three wide receivers. So pretty quickly, those guys matter. Mylan Graham coming, he mentioned that Tay Johnson softened the landing spot, JB, and obviously sharing a trainer, and he kind of calls it his hometown team. He just didn't choose him the first time because, Ohio State does pretty well with wide receiver recruiting.
Yeah, and Mylan Graham again in the transcripts and speaking with people there in the Goog, a very confident guy, very confident that he can take what Malachi Fields did a year ago and enhance that even more at Notre Dame and with CJ Carr at quarterback. And so you do get the sense that he does relish being back in his home state. It's an easy drive for anyone to come see him or for him to slide home if they get a weekend off or things like that. And again, we've talked about it in recent weeks. We talked about it really throughout the fall, and we touched on it last week with Malachi Fields shooting up the draft boards. But the Notre Dame offense last year and what CJ Carr did opened it up to being more appealing to the Mylan Grahams and the Quincy Porters than to other players. And I think that you would have had a hard time being the unfortunate bridesmaid with Marsh if you hadn't shown so much in your throw game last year with CJ Carr. So Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter, I'm with you, T.O. I talked to people in Columbus for several weeks about him. Ohio State coaching staff didn't seem to know the exact issue with him and with his injury because they went into a game late in the season expecting to have him available, and he got added to the game day player availability chart as out for the game, and that was a shock, I was told, to the Ohio State coaches. So it was more of a cleanup than a true rebuild or repair.
We're going to talk about Spencer Porath and his unique situation, maybe with question one there in segment 2, since it's asked about him. I didn't spend any time with Porath. Did you, TP?
I did not, but I did spend I started my initial time with Keelley. And, I mean, that's just, I don't want to get away from Porath. You want to talk about him?
No, we're not going to. We're going to put Porath in the first question.
Okay, great. I mean, it's difficult not to listen to and look at Keelley and say, this is a good fit for Notre Dame. I mean, we knew it when he chose Alabama the first time through, but just, he says, I'm a much different person than I was. I feel like my outlook on football has 100% changed. I feel like this is a blessing to be in this opportunity, and it's at the perfect time. There's no better opportunity than to be here at Notre Dame. And I talked to people that a couple weeks ago about, well, how's Keelley adapting, and it was like, no surprise, you felt like Notre Dame was the right place for him. I'm sure, he was fine at Alabama too, but Notre Dame is just right for him. And so the hope is that the comfort zone of the University of Notre Dame will bring out the best in Keon Keelley when he's a defensive end and the football snapped.
Yeah, I think that people have seen a great maturity from him. There hasn't been a real sense of transition whatsoever. There's been more of a sense in speaking with people that, well, Keon Keelley's where he should have been all along. And now I think most importantly, Keon Keelley has that exact same thought. He's another guy that's made it clear he's very motivated to be in the best shape of his life. That's what he's told some people, that he wants to be in the best shape of his life for this time at Notre Dame. And that kind of motivation with the maturity and perspective that he's also gained, I think are again part of a winning recipe for Notre Dame in terms of his addition and what he can bring to the team.
Before we get to some conversation about coaches on the move, I want to ask you guys. Maltese Irish mentioned. Did anyone or anything they say surprise you? And I want to speak for poor Mylan Graham, who's probably getting killed on social media from his old Ohio State brethren. I believe he just said the difference is you have to attend class rather than be online. It's being framed all over the internet.
Oh, I get it.
Attend class like that
Right.
class exists.
He didn't
just
quite
saying-
finish his thought out
He's
loud.
just right. He talked to us
Okay.
briefly upstairs about it. He's like, no, it has not been rough at all. It's just, there's no online class. I mean, that's it for a lot. That's it for a lot of people. I think, I'm sorry, Graham did not say that to me. Charlie Partridge said to me, having a guy like Jason Onye here, he lets the guys know you have to meet your professors. You don't just take online classes. You have to become part of the fabric of the university and the institution learning. So that was where it went from. But yeah, I think Mylan Graham's he's going viral for saying you have to go to class. He means
okay.
physically you have to be in class at Notre Dame.
By the way, I wanted to say this. Tion Gray, Sevillano kind of took him under his wing, and Tion Gray showed up a couple minutes late for a meeting, and Sevillano immediately told him, and he said like 7 other guys said, "Hey man, you can't be late for meetings." So, the team has a good understanding of how things need to be run, and they're teaching, in this instance, Tion Gray the right approach.
I mean, it's great news about Sevillano because he had a hard December conversation. Like he is not in a position, like let's not sugarcoat this. He was not in a position to be telling anybody what to do 2 months ago. So it's great that he has accepted that leadership role because that was one of the difficult conversations that we know of, right, JB? That's not
Correct.
Just,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Again, we've discussed it very candidly. And not every roster spot was guaranteed. And we saw that in people leaving that were more highly recruited prospects when they signed with Notre Dame. They got bigger bags of money from NIL and rev share when they committed and signed with Notre Dame. And this was, Sean Sevillano had to show that he was going to be as serious about football and football at Notre Dame and life at Notre Dame as he had ever shown before.
Former Notre Dame running backs coach Dylan McCullough left for the NFL and Las Vegas Raiders. There was a change up on the Raiders staff. Really not the fault of Dylan McCullough, I don't believe, but he is now headed back, reported to the college ranks. JB, what have you heard about McCullough going to OU? And I know Notre Dame fans immediately, they all love Dylan McCullough, and they should love Jaywan Sider because that was the best year for running backs in I don't know how long. But apparently not using 3 and 4 makes people mad, as opposed to just having a Heisman contender and a top 10 Heisman contender, which I don't get, but yeah. Dylan McCullough going to OU.
Yeah, crazy off-season cycle for Dylan McCullough. A year ago, not only did he jump from Notre Dame to the NFL, he became, according to numerous people, the highest-paid running backs coach in the NFL, and he had multiple years left on that highest-paid running backs coach contract with the Raiders. They obviously could block him from going to another NFL team. I'm not sure that's what happened with the Kansas City Chiefs, but Dylan thought he was going back to Kansas City, and then the Murray hire sort of came out of nowhere, which then ends up being, okay, Murray goes to Kansas City and Dylan McCullough takes his spot at Oklahoma. There were some people wondering, could Dylan land there or would Oklahoma hold it against them for his son transferring out of that program? Dylan McCullough is an elite coach, as we've all talked about, as he's talked about, and he will be a very strong add for the Oklahoma Sooners. I've maintained contact with Dylan even after he's left. I'm happy for him. I'm also friends with the guy that finished runner-up to him, so I kind of hate it for that guy as well because he doesn't have 2 years more guaranteed on an NFL contract. He's at another college spot making a fraction of that money. But no, it's a great ad for Oklahoma. Dylan McCullough is elite. People should always remember it was Dylan McCullough that brought Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price to Notre Dame, and it was Dylan McCullough who showed up at the Heisman Trophy ceremony to support Jeremiah Love back in December. And the Raiders were in the area to play a game, but it still took effort for Dylan McCullough to get done with all of his positional meetings and staff meetings with the Raiders and get over to the downtown New York Athletic Club.
Tim Priester, a little more relevant news in terms of Notre Dame. Also a homecoming. Javon Codlin returns after a 22-day decorated tenure at North Texas. He's back to be the senior defensive analyst and safeties coach. Go ahead, JB. You had something to say before he comes in?
I just wanted to say real quickly, kind of like Mike Price's tenure at Alabama, he will go down with the distinction of being undefeated as a North Texas assistant coach.
He really made his
Under
mark.
better circumstances than Price did at Alabama.
Yeah, he really made his
Depends on your
mark
point of
in
view. Sorry.
Denton, Texas, right? Isn't that where
that's
North
it.
Texas
That's
is?
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, kind of celebrated because we've seen Codlin in action as a coach. He's animated, he's vocal, he's impactful, and he will take over coaching the safeties as the senior analyst on the defensive side of the football. I don't. What else can you say other than great? Nice to bring a guy that we're familiar with, that we know coaches his ass off when he's on the Notre Dame practice field, and by all accounts did a nice job when he was here.
And let's not lose sight of the fact that he was an impact in this past recruiting class, and he is a force on the recruiting trail, and he's somebody that Notre Dame has in the past. Now that NCAA rules have changed, you don't have to be an on-field assistant coach to be able to go on the road recruiting, and he has been in the past one of those guys designated as able to go on the road recruiting for Notre Dame. He is a force on the recruiting trail. That might be his biggest impact, of course, with his return, and he is going to coach safeties, and I wouldn't be surprised to see his title be senior defensive analyst and safeties coach. That means that Marty Biaggi will more or less be wholly 100% focused on special teams. Even though Marty enjoyed working with the secondary and with the safety specifically, and had also wanted to do so in order to grow his coaching toolbox. So just a little bit of an interesting subplot or sub-dynamic to the move there. But again, getting Kylan back is definitely another win for Notre Dame's coaching staff, particularly off the field as well as on the field. It also, I'll say, I would pay attention. Him returning, they're technically, as of right this moment, wasn't an open spot. There's expected to be one more departure for Notre Dame, I believe, on that side of the analyst staff. So, or that staff. There's going to be something opened up that they didn't create a position to get him back. They just finessed the title.
You know, when you have Chris Ash, whose expertise is on the back end, and you hire Aaron Henry to replace Mickens, and you hire a safeties coach, it's pretty obvious Marty Biaggi is going to be focusing on special teams and or helping somewhere else, because that's a lot of backline help. Very quickly, still, I just want to point this out, Priester and JB, 10 official assistant coaches, but it doesn't, you can have coaches on the field. Is there no limit now in practice who can coach? Like we used to, back in 2000, and TJP helped me out here when Kyle McCarthy was a defensive analyst. We were like, Kyle McCarthy's doing a great job kind of coaching the safeties. We're not supposed to talk about that. But now it doesn't really matter as much, right?
Correct. There has been discussion. Certainly athletics directors and some leaders want it to be capped because you've got coaches out there saying, I need this and I need an assistant position coach for every position coach. And so you briefly saw some staff swelling to 20 coaches or more, and it became a subset of the arms race. And then actually places like Florida and Alabama that were at the forefront of that have cut back in that regard. So, but there's not any real stipulations on who can coach. You can be a GA and coach on the field. You can be an analyst and help coach. There's still limitations as to how many people can be on a headset for game day and how many people can be stationed in a certain spot, but you don't have any restrictions on the practice field. And it wasn't just like you had to try to avoid that. I think there were I know there were multiple teams that got chalked up for secondary NCAA violations for, video showing that not one of the 10 was instructing on the field during practice. It happened at Tennessee. It happened at Alabama. It might have happened somewhere else in the SEC. It happened to a Big Ten school as well. So that's no longer an issue.
Kyle McCarthy would have been a hell of a safeties coach.
He did a great job as an analyst or whatever he was when he was coaching the safeties in Notre Dame on the field. I thought he was fantastic.
He chose a less chaotic life by going by going to athletes first, and I'm sure he's doing quite well for himself. Probably not Probably not as well as what assistant coaches are making today, but
Yeah.
he was excellent. He was, and that's why I mean Codlin is essentially like having an 11th full time
Yeah.
coach. He's that good.
We didn't see a lot of
Yeah.
practice last year, but he was helping the defensive line, and I was like, who? That first time I saw him, like, who is this guy? Because he is doing a great job out here, and that's good news. And I believe Kyle McCarthy actually they wrote a book about him when he was on the 2009 defense. Is the only guy that could tackle the red badge of courage was about Kyle McCarthy, right? When he had to try to help out.
Well,
That was-
Kyle McCarthy at Athletes First might be making more than these high
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Athletes First is an absolute powerhouse, and they have evolved in the name, image, and likeness front. They rep. I've been told they rep more college athletes around the country for NIL than any other agency out there. They did just lose their head of the collegiate NIL division, former Notre Dame personnel guru Dave Poloquin. He's now the new general manager
Yes.
at that team up north, the University of Michigan. So happy for Dave. We broke that news last night, and it's more official today. I think he's reported to the Wolverines and joined Kyle Whittingham's program. But yeah,
Really
success
happy.
for Poloquin, success for Kyle. Yeah, go ahead, T.
I've known Dave Poloquin for a long time, and I did communicate with him last night to congratulate him, and very happy for him. Kyle McCarthy was at the forefront of when athletes first began, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you're right. He's doing quite well for himself, but
So,
without the chaos,
Yeah.
which is
Well, a
what
different
coaching
kind of
is.
chaos.
Different
Yeah.
kind of chaos.
Yeah, I would imagine.
What we're saying is the four highest pay, or the four best jobs in the world right now are fired NFL coach, number one, transfer quarterback, no matter what, number two for your payment, right? Incoming freshman apparently is number three from some of the salaries I've seen there, and athletes first is number four. There we go. All right,
I would
One of those
still
four
have
things.
number two fired SEC coach.
Fired
So
SEC coach, even
fired
more than
NFL
incoming
coach.
freshman safety. I don't know,
Yeah,
man. That's a
yeah,
nice
we
job
have
to
we
be in.
have learned fired NFL coach is great because those coaches' contracts not typically as long term as college contracts, but 100% fully guaranteed no matter what.
That's nice. That's different than incoming freshman. We will be back with segment two, burning up the boards. Welcome back to segment two, burning up the boards. Our first question from Bobby1556. There's a lot of words here, but they are actually all well written. Good job, Bobby. A few podcasts ago, there was a conversation on grad transfers and how they can't transfer freely anymore, that they have to do it within the portal window, just like everyone else. I believe it was said for someone to transfer now the portal is closed, they would have to drop out of their current school and enroll somewhere else, much like what Spencer Porath did coming from Purdue to Notre Dame. My question is, if this is the case, what the heck is the point of the transfer portal? Further, if tampering is more or less a tolerated practice now, what is stopping a school from simply contacting a player at any time and saying, hey, just drop out and enroll here?
Yeah, I'll try to answer this the best I can. And Bobby makes a great point. I don't think it's quite as cut and dried that you can abuse the system that way. I still think certainly like you can't drop out of school in the SEC and go to another SEC school and start playing like that. The conference has bylaws against that and has enacted rules against that. Then it becomes if you are on a scholarship and a school doesn't release you from that scholarship, then you can't accept a scholarship from another school, even if you have dropped out. That was similar to what we initially saw with Caden Proctor when he was leaving Alabama or leaving Iowa to go to Alabama. And Iowa very strongly believed that there had been tampering taking place to the point of what's stopping a school from contacting a player at any time. There's really not a lot right now. That's why we saw Dabo Sweeney go on his soapbox rant a couple of weeks ago, begging for ramifications. And SEC people are saying, and so are others around the country, saying they want the ramifications. They want people to adhere to what the rules are, and that it will take turning them in. It'll be interesting to see what, if anything, comes of Clemson very obviously turning in Ole Miss and that new coaching staff led by Pete Golden down there in Oxford. But otherwise, there is a lot of player freedom, just the same as it would be anywhere. Like if you're at a school and you're miserable at that school and you want to drop out and enroll somewhere else, I mean, you have to leave in good academic standing. You have to know that you can get in to your next school. And Notre Dame certainly is among the tougher schools to arrive to, especially if you've dropped out of your last school. So it's not quite that cut and dried. It is a fair point. But the graduate transfer thing is now, again, if you graduate in May and you let people think you're done playing football, and you have a year left, like nothing can be done about that. But that's from a graduate transfer standpoint, and that was more, again, the trying to constrict and narrow the portal so that it's one window, and that there can be the goal behind it is to have some roster stability, even if that's not, even if we're still light years from true roster stability.
Notre Dame, in the last two regular seasons, so 24 games, missed 14 of 27 field goal attempts. Mitch Jeter, of course, came back and was January Jeter, going 7 of 8 in the playoffs. They missed 14 of their last 27 field goal attempts in 2024 and 2025 when everybody hits field goals. And they threw in 4 missed extra points last year as well. If you're wondering why Notre Dame needed to find a way to get Spencer Porath on their program, be it from dropping out and applying or getting in the transfer portal, that is why. Because you cannot win playoff games missing more field goals than you make. And these weren't all bombs, Tim Priester. They were just missing field goals.
No, they were some really bad misses. I would also throw in that there were 3 kickoffs that went out of bounds.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's true. That's not great.
One more note to clean up there, or to add, and you triggered it, T.O., is the point that you can drop out, but if you've had a contract that you've signed at your previous institution, right, you're still held to that. And we're seeing more and more schools going after the individuals to pay their buyouts, and buyouts are fairly, they were not heard of much 2 years ago in college football. They started being implemented much more last year. Texas Tech, USC, Baylor, Clemson, a number of other places. Now they're fairly ubiquitous, and so it's not, again, as simple as dropping out, because you're typically dropping out to try and find a way to transfer, but you're still under your revenue share / NIL contract at your previous school. So then you face having to pay for school on your own and having to pay back your contract.
Next question from Nicodemus. We have become accustomed to worrying about the interior defensive line depth, but this may be overshadowing current concerns at the edge position. It's a good-looking trio with Young, Traore, and Keelley, but where do they go from there? Logan Thomas has the skills, but does he have the size and strength to fill in more than a niche role? What will you be watching for this spring at defensive end?
Well, it's a legitimate concern, and again, Tim O'Malley confirmed that 207 is actually, there was no way that was going to be an inaccurate weight for Logan Thomas. That would be a guy that everybody's sensitive about, making sure that it's accurate.
It was like Sevillano.
Right, that's exactly right, only in the other direction. He is 207, so I'm sure that he has an opportunity to add a little bit of weight before spring practice begins, but it's a legitimate concern, and so yeah, you need a Rodney Dunham to come in and be impactful from the beginning. When we look at Notre Dame's roster, we know it's loaded. You're never going to have perfect depth at every position. I wonder what options Notre Dame could have with Charlie Partridge coming in and maybe being a little bit open-minded about some other guys. I don't know. Jason Onye is over 300 pounds, so I don't know if he's could pop into a strong side defensive end situation. But yeah, it's a little bit concerning, but you absolutely like those front three. And again, Keon Keelley's got to be a hit, man. I mean, this can't be, Keelley's not living up to his potential. He has to be a hit. And for that matter, so does Bryce Young. But you know what? I have confidence that the experiences that Bryce Young has gone through the last couple of years, the positives and probably especially the negatives, that we're going to see a lot better performance from Bryce Young. And Boubacar Traore is really in a position to have a breakout year where people across the country are saying Boubacar Traore, he's eligible for the draft. This is a guy that's going to have a breakout year this season.
Yeah, I agree. And Bryce Young has notably dropped some weight from what he played at last year. So I think that's certainly encouraging for him to recapturing some of that explosiveness that we've seen to go along with his other physical attributes. It's not just Rodney Dunham. You need Ebenezer Iwatade, even though I know I pronounced it wrong because Tim Priester is the pronunciation.
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Well, nonetheless, that's a fair point.
Chances are you pronounced it wrong.
Yeah.
That's true.
But that's a fair point to say it's overshadowing a little bit. One person we didn't mention yet that I would bring into that mix is having Jalen Sneed back, and he's got some versatility. He's also down a little bit from where he played last year. Perhaps he's able to do a little bit more off the edge as well. So I would just, it's a fair concern. He wants to know what we'll see in the spring. I mean, we're going to look at those two freshmen, especially, and we're also going to try and see how much Keon Keelley is relishing his new lease
And
on life and what else we might see Notre Dame deploy in that regard.
another guy that we're completely overlooking, we're talking about freshmen, but Dominic Hulock is a guy that I've always found very interesting. He's always kind of been a tweener for me, but I'm interested to see him. And I mean, let's be fair, he's still in the program, and he's a sophomore, a redshirt freshman, and let's see if he can make an impact as well.
Question number 3 from Vegas Nerve 79, but spelled Vagas. So I don't know if that's a typo or
Vegas
just,
Ferguson.
I think it's Ferguson
yeah.
reference. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you go. All right. We're accustomed to rotations up front defensively and with Max Ballas / Al Golden at the linebacker coaching position. My question is, will we see a heavier rotation on the back end this season? Nickel, both safeties, corners. TP, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, I think, Christian Gray, Dallas Golden, Leonard Moore, Mark Zachary, DJ McKinney, and Sanders, Jaden Sanders. I mean, these are, other than Sanders, who's only, well, I guess Zachary as well and Golden, but we've seen them and we know that they're strong candidates. Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned 6 guys there for 5 positions, and then you have a couple of freshmen that people are really high on in Kari Adams and Aiden Pouncey. So, I mean, there's a possibility. To speculate about 2 freshmen that we haven't seen in a Notre Dame uniform on the football field yet. Jadon Blair a year ago, everybody was expecting him to get in the mix, and he didn't. So, there's a lot of really good candidates there. I think at safety, Schuler, Tay Johnson, Telich is in a rotation there as much as they want to use him. And Ethan Long flashed on occasion last year too. So it looks like a really good situation, but really until we see, a couple of freshmen, we're looking at 6 guys for 5 spots, which I don't know, how much deeper we're really talking about.
They played 7 guys more than 300 snaps last year, and Devontae Smith was just under that, playing only 8 games. So you played 8 guys over 300 snaps. That does not include Luke Talich.
Yeah,
I would
Tim,
expect plenty of rotation on the back end. There was rotation in the past, but with leaving the freshman out of it, and I believe Joey O'Brien will be a guy that plays, considering how they courted him to get him to the school. Other than Leonard Moore taking a little break, I think there's a heavy rotation at nickel on the other side. You got to
and I mean, you can. It looks like you can, and I think that.
I think the Moore drop off will always be seismic, and the other ones will not be seismic, though. You're taking out Leonard Moore of a competitive game. You made a coaching error.
Well, it's like when you say that, Tim, it reminds me of some of the stuff that Partridge said about, when he was at Wisconsin 2008 and he ran those guys into the ground. But you do have to know that your backups are capable of giving you solid reps, and I think they feel that way at defensive tackle, and I think they'll feel that way in the secondary as well.
JB?
And actually, I'm sorry, I misspoke. There are 6 guys for really 3 spots: Gray, Golden, Moore, Zachary, McKinney, Sanders. So that, in and of itself, puts you in a position to play more guys in the secondary. So it's a pertinent question, I think. We have a question from Tony Rice. T. Rice, what's going on there, kid? The NIL settlement where schools pay athletes around $20.5 million. Is Notre Dame responsible for raising the money, or does the money come from the NCAA?
Happy to answer this one. We've discussed it before. This money does not come from the NCAA. That's been my point about it all along, is like this revenue share is great. Also, most colleges are not already operating with a $20+ million surplus. This was $20 million additional that colleges had to find, whether that meant cutting from somewhere or whether that meant finding new revenue streams. That's why you're seeing the NCAA just recently adopting a measure to allow patches now on official game uniforms, not in the playoffs. They will not be allowed on uniforms in the playoffs, but they will be allowed in the regular season up to two. Also, they're allowing equipment patches as well, which I think not only includes being able to have a sponsor logo of some sort on a helmet or shoe or whatever, but then it also means potentially even having a sponsor logo on a football. So they're doing new things, but no, each school is responsible. That's why you had to opt in to the NCAA revenue sharing agreement, the House settlement. You did not have to opt in and say you were going to distribute all 20.5 million in year one. And again, that goes up by 4% starting this year. So it's over 21 million moving forward this year, 21.5 million, something like that. I'm sure Dan Molyneux will be correcting me, but there's definitely that definitely comes from within the school revenue stream, the school athletics budget. That is not money from the NCAA. Money from the NCAA was used to pay the class action settlement portion, basically, of the House settlement. It went to the former athletes. Everything for current and future athletes comes from the member institutions.
Our next question from Andy Davis. Do any of you have any insight on how ND has managed the academic pitch to undergraduate transfers? Do you think they, undergrad transfers, will now be a regular occurrence moving forward, or do the stars need to align? Is that what happened this year?
JB, go ahead.
I think it still has to be the stars aligning. Like I think we've discussed on this podcast in recent weeks that Marcus Freeman and the football program has a great relationship with Mickey Kidder and company directing Notre Dame admissions. They have a very open relationship. This has been something I even referred to on a recent podcast that Link Jarrett and Marcus Freeman were working on several years ago to start having a pathway for undergraduate transfers to get in. And, I know Link and Marcus felt like together they had some momentum at the time. And now obviously Link's doing great things at his alma mater, Florida State. But I still don't think Notre Dame's going to live in that. Notre Dame doesn't want to live in that. Notre Dame wants to be a developmental program. That's why it signed a consensus top 3, top 5 national recruiting class and invested heavily in fiscal and other resources to bring that class in.
It was a breakthrough this year with the undergrads. Now, are they going to expand on that next year? Probably not. That's generally not how Notre Dame works. There's a breakthrough in undergrad transfers. I would anticipate a comparable amount next year, and then maybe over time. I can't. The future 5 years from now, who knows? Because college football is changing so much, and Notre Dame's changing a whole lot as well. But yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of the stars aligning and Notre Dame now taking this step forward, not necessarily making another huge advancement in undergrad transfers next year or the year after.
I don't want to speak for him because I was not there, but we'll ask him Monday or next week. Pete did ask the new guy, the undergrad transfers, what was the process? Was it difficult? Kind of just walk me through admissions and all that. And none of them indicated it was a difficult situation. So I found that interesting. I think if you're better off getting undergraduate transfers than 1 year guys, because you want to have them and they want to be with you, you get them for multiple years. And if you don't want to have them and they don't want to be with you, they don't have to stay anymore. That's the way the world works here with transfers. Bringing the best possible transfer is the way to go. Maybe some team harmony issues when you bring in a guy that's got 3 years left, because if Zachary and Golden weren't secure and you bring in Jaden Sanders, it's different than bringing in Devonta Smith, right? If you look at it that way. But it's like we said, what do we say? It's not happy camp. You got to figure something out, right? I think it's always good. Look, what if Elijah Hughes is a 1 year rental? You'd be worried about defensive tackle again. There'd be one defensive tackle short. He's a 2 year guy. It helps more. Tion Gray.
You would have needed 3 in that too.
Yeah. So I think undergrad's the way to go. But Tim, for your point, I think you're still looking at under 10 transfers. Marcus Freeman stuff. Yeah.
Right.
That's the number they seem to be comfortable with.
Question number 6, and Executive Director Tim O'Malley here slapping me with a double question.
Give you a long one.
PA Irish 5. It feels a bit like each ND coach has a recruit that somewhat defines his tenure at Notre Dame. Willingham had Sam Young and Darius Walker. Weiss had Clausen. BK had Manti. Who was Marcus Freeman's tentpole recruit, followed by DHS Spartan 1985, going back only to the Brian Kelly era at Notre Dame, which single player has had the largest impact on the program? Personally, I'm going with Manti Te'o. T.O., I'm going with you to open the floor this time.
You know, lasting impact now, I'm going with Kyle Hamilton. I mean, Manti Te'o had the best year. I don't think Manti Te'o changed linebacker recruiting that much at Notre Dame because they didn't start bringing in a ton of great linebackers because of Manti Te'o. Jalen Smith did follow. That would be a good one. He was a Fort Wayne guy. Um, I think Kyle Hamilton's impact on how Notre Dame has recruited since Kyle Hamilton has the biggest impact, and it still goes on today because players still talk about him. In terms of the first question, it's Jeremiah Love, isn't it? Best player.
Yeah. I mean, it's CJ Carr also. CJ Carr also.
Yeah, one of those two. I mean, Jeremiah Love redefined what we think of the Notre Dame running back to be. So when Aeneas Williams averages 5.9 yards a carry, I'm like, man, that was boring 1,000 yards. He's just a different cat, you know. Great call. CJ Carr, good call. Could be the one.
Leonard Moore follows Benjamin Morrison. The second question. I mean, who were the great besides Manti Te'o? Who were Quentin Nelson? Although Notre Dame is always recruiting well along the offensive line. Michael Mayer at tight end, but
it's until Bremer. I mean,
you can talk about Tyler Eifert prior to him, Michael Floyd at wide receiver, Zach Martin. But again,
I think Hamilton had a much bigger impact on the field.
No, I agree. I'm just throwing out who were the marquee players during that time. But I think in terms of like the expression tent pole recruit, I would agree with you that Kyle Hamilton.
I agree on Kyle Hamilton for sure for that overall impact question. Marcus Freeman's tentpole recruit, and he's had a nice, not spectacular career. I've got to have Jalen Sneed in the conversation. He was a consensus recruit, a consensus 4- and 5-star recruit, coveted by every SEC program, and he was at Hilton Head, South Carolina. That was the first time that Notre Dame really sent a message that it's continued to send under Marcus Freeman, that we're coming into SEC territory. We're not backing down on any recruiting battles. It would have initially maybe been Keon Keelley had he come directly to Notre Dame out of high school. But I've got Jalen Sneed in that conversation for the message it sent about what Notre Dame was going to do and has continued to do and is effectively doing under Marcus Freeman.
So Deuce Knight could have been that guy too as a top recruit because you went down there and pulled Deuce Knight out of.
And now I love the CJ Carr. Carr's up there.
He's not.
But I mean, he's up there, and you went into your hated rivals' backyard and took a legacy recruit from them.
And now you have Teddy Gerard, who we all anticipate becoming a really, really good college quarterback. We have a question from Tamper Proof Pat. Which new assistant coach has the hardest job this offseason in terms of getting the room ready for the fall? Same question. Which returning coach?
Well, the hardest one is not Aaron Henry.
No.
I'd like to walk into that room, JB. Go ahead and tell me who has the hardest job getting his team ready for the fall, the new coach.
No, I was actually going to say I think the most pressure is on Aaron Hank Henry, because you have to follow in the footsteps of Mike Mickens. And Mike Mickens is the fact that Mike Mickens didn't have the profile to be a Broyles Award finalist multiple times in recent years is a travesty. Not in the literal sense, but I'm using it on podcast because it sounds good. And I really think that it's Aaron Henry, because you can't let that group. It's so supremely talented. You can't afford any sort of drop off on the offensive side of the ball. You better believe it's Juwan Sider, and they paid Juwan Sider more than they were paying Dylan McCullough. They made Juwan Sider about their first 7-figure 3-year deal running backs coach. So it's Juwan Sider on offense for me, unquestionably, and I really still contend that it's Aaron Hank Henry on the defensive side.
I just really quickly, that's like saying Juwan Sider had the hardest group to get ready for next spring. Well, he's replacing a really good running backs coach. Here you go, J Love.
It was phrased as hardest job, and I don't know that it. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, JB, about the pressure of following Mike Mickens.
Phil Jackson with Shaq and Kobe being able to make this thing work somehow for everybody.
Yeah. I think on the offensive side of the ball, you could argue, Denbrock's got to get that tight ends room in order. Sider has to replace the top two running backs. Mike Brown has to get the receiving core in order as well, develop that second unit, and Rudolph has, you lost two guys to the NFL, and you have Craig and Jagus out with injuries. So I think you can make an argument for each one of the assistant coaches on offense.
Well, not Gaduli.
Each one of those four. I misspoke. Yes,
that's the one guy. Gaduli has Gaduli's job could change faster than anybody's job on the entire team, though. In an
that's
unfortunate
very true.
incident. But if things just go well, he probably feels a little more. After what he had last spring, he had the hardest job, Gino Gaduli. I mean, it wasn't like it was going to go badly, but Gino Gaduli had 3 quarterbacks to manage, and even if he thought he had 2, he ended up. I think he knew he had 3. We thought he had 2. He ended up having 3 because Kenny Minchey was the one that rose up. Imagine going to that spring and all of a sudden you're dealing with how good Kenny Minchey was too. If you're Gaduli, trying to figure out what your deal is going to be, and then you got to turn it over to a general manager a little bit. That could not have been easy. Here's my recommendation. Marcus gives his recommendation, and then a general manager talks about the money. That's a hard.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Ultimately, the decision was made by Marcus Freeman, and I realize it was very competitive in the spring.
But I think the quarterback.
But if any one of us was the head coach of Notre Dame last year, we would have picked C.J. Carr to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, I think the quarterback decision was more Gaduli and Denbrock in the spring than Marcus. I think Marcus made the August decision.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
He wasn't working through 3. He couldn't be working
right.
through 3.
I'm thinking August. Yes.
Yeah. Next question is a 2-parter. First is from Hemi. Do you feel Charlie Partridge will have an impact on ND's defensive line similar to what Mike Mickens' impact was on the defensive back fortunes? I mean this in terms of not only production, but recruiting, run-stopping ability, pass rush ability, and obviously he's giving Charlie Partridge time. Next is from Bryce's Burner, JB's favorite handle. Do the changes in defense still result in a net positive in the short term? Just the short term. Is this defense in a better spot for 2026 than it was coming off the Stanford win when they had Mike Mickens? And they had Bulla and Washington, but we had a feeling Bulla was leaving at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I almost put this exact phrase in my Thursday thoughts, but I'm just going ahead and going to say it right now. I'm really excited about Charlie Partridge. I'd have to think about which coach that came in that I was as excited about as I am Charlie Partridge. I thought Al Golden was a perfect fit for Notre Dame. I thought that was an inspired decision, which was actually initiated by Jack Swarbrick to Marcus Freeman, and Marcus Freeman agreed. But I'm as excited about what Charlie Partridge can do. I mean, not just short-term, long-term, about his impact on defensive line play, because, look, Notre Dame's had a great secondary. That's important. Notre Dame's had a great linebacker core. That's important. A great defensive line at the point of attack, where, as you say, Tim, where you can generate a pass rush without sending, the beyond the front 4. That is huge. I'm as excited about him as I've been about most any assistant coach that has come into the program.
Yeah, I think over time, as long as Notre Dame keeps him and this program is continuing in this trajectory, I have similar expectations for what Charlie Partridge can do as to what we saw Mike Mickens do. And the short term, is this defense in a better spot even without Mickens? I think, yeah, with the portal additions and with the hires that they've made, I think that this defense is poised to be a notch above where it left the field after that Stanford game. That's also partly because you kept Chris Ash, your defensive coordinator. We've talked about the importance for continuity from the top down. So all of those things make me believe that this defense can and frankly should be better in 26 than it was in 25, and it was fine in 25.
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense will be better than it was. I think it would be better than it was if they kept the staff, too. I don't think Mike Mickens and Bulla and Al Washington would have hurt the situation at all. I want to be fair to both sides here. Way more excited about Charlie Partridge coming in than we were Mike Mickens, because Mike Mickens did not have the reputation of Charlie Partridge. If Charlie Partridge comes anywhere near coaching Kyle Hamilton, Benjamin Morrison, Leonard Moore, Adon Schuler, Tay Johnson, and Xavier Watts, the wide receiver. So Charlie Partridge goes and gets an offensive guard and makes him into the number one defensive tackle in the country. That's what Mike Mickens did at Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Those
that's
guys
what.
are what Mike Mickens developed at Notre Dame. You can't if Charlie Partridge does that, that's Vinny Serrato territory. Kyle Hamilton, Benjamin Morrison, Leonard Moore, Adon Schuler, Tay Johnson, Xavier Watts.
I hear you. That's why the notion of a net positive in the short term. A couple of podcasts ago we just put Mike Mickens on the Mount Rushmore of assistant coaches in our lifetime. I mean, I
He would
hesitate
not
to
have been
say
there. Like we didn't feel about Mickens. Like you said, you're so
no. I'm talking about something completely different. But I mean, net positive in the short term. I'm sure Aaron Henry's a great defensive backs coach, but when he leaves Notre Dame, are we going to put him in the Mount Rushmore of assistant coaches? that's kind of a stretch, or my mind can't.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around that right now. So
no one they ever hire you were going to think is going to go to the Mount Rushmore of assistant coaches because there's 4 spots and they look pretty good right now. Those 4 spots.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking at. Yeah, it's the net positive is interesting though. I mean, we'll find that out more when stuff hits the fan at BYU and Miami plays better in the second quarter than Notre Dame does and what's going on. Because, I think I made the comment on our last podcast or last week, we can't judge the staff by what happened, what were the results were. And Pete joked, well, that's what you judge them by. I mean, like the current staff, we can't judge the current staff because of their resume. You got to see what goes down. No one thought what went down at Miami and A&M was going to go down last year at this time. For Notre Dame
true.
Defense.
Yeah.
So it's when good news is Charlie Partridge did say he and Chris Ash have a heck of a relationship when stuff does hit the fan. That is something they have been through.
So as long as Chris Ash is here, Charlie Partridge is here, and that's always tenuous. Who knows? But we know that pairing will stick together.
Final question here, another portal situation. JB, I thought this would be a good one to bring up when you're on the podcast. From East X Dino 3, with the current cap for NIL, do you see that number evolving in the future? JB already mentioned it will evolve in the future. How does a program like ND account for changes planning long term? For example, there's a highly ranked guy like Teddy Gerard who hasn't played it down yet, but could command significant NIL offers based purely on his potential. How does that factor into a cap? And then the guys like Tay Johnson, who broke out All-American season, decides to return. Does that trigger a 20% bump in NIL? Does that trigger something higher?
Just first of all, to prove that even if I don't like math, I can do math. That new number is 21.32 million. So moving forward, that's the number we need to know. That Notre Dame and everyone else who's opted into rev share at the full amount, that's what it goes to this summer. The first year was 20.5. It's a 4% increase. I did the math. It's 21.32 million.
We could just do 21.5 to make this easier on all of us. 21.32.
I mean, if you want to be inaccurate, that's up to you. But yes, it's a great 2-part question, and it's accurate. And look, we just saw it happen. I mean, Adon Schuler and Tay Johnson were at the tip of the spear in terms of renegotiated deals that got more money. A year ago, Emil Wagner and I think Billy Strouth and some of those people also got heavily renegotiated deals. It's important to remember the NCAA maximum allowed direct from a school is the rev share number. Moving forward, 21.32 million. This past year, 20.5. That's not all that people can earn. You still have your outside NIL opportunities. Now, those are supposed to be passed through the NIL Go program that's part of the CSC that's now managing it. I have had general managers tell me they're so frustrated with the pace and the approval rates in the CSC NIL Go program that they're just bypassing it and taking their chances. So that's happening. They feel like, yes, our community, our fan base thinks 250,000 to go sign autographs for 3 hours is a very fair sum. We're approving that deal. So that's important to note, that's another way to do it. But yeah, the other term, I was with a GM from a power conference program that's been a conference champion in recent years. That's played in some of the biggest bowls, been on the cusp of the playoff. Even when it was a 4-team playoff, I was with him just within the last 2 weeks, and he told me our philosophy is not going to be a top 10 recruiting class. You have to spend insane money. We are going to be a developmental recruiting program that targets being ranked 11 to 35 nationally, and we're going to be more selective with our money. The top 10, I bring that up because when you're in the top 10, you're guaranteeing a lot of money to your freshman class, and you're counting on renegotiating in year two with the players you hit on and paying less to the players you did not hit on. I hope that fairly
It did,
accurately answers it.
maybe. And I wanted to point out a guy like Gerard, Notre Dame had to take care of to ensure the first
Yeah,
game
and,
anyway. That's not as hard because they know that he had to have escalating deal going into next year and come and just to get him to not go to Georgia and other places. Like,
and shame on me because I'm drawing a blank right this instant. But the ballyhooed safety that's part of this recruiting class for Notre Dame.
Joey O'Brien.
Yeah, Joey O'Brien. Gosh, I'm a fool. He got. I mean, there's a reason he's already a national spokesman for Under Armour. There's a reason he's already part of that first class of high school students to get NIL deals with Under Armour. That was hardly an accident.
It's a TP follow.
Well, I'm just talking in general terms here. The more everybody else spends, the more Notre Dame will spend. I mean, it's just that's the direction we're going. I mean, in the spirit of the question, yeah. I mean, it's just this is the way it's escalating, and Notre Dame has to escalate along with everybody else. Are they going to be Texas Tech? No, I don't think so. But when you start adding it all up, undergrad transfers, everything is going in the direction where Notre Dame has to continue to keep up with the Joneses. And right now, you look at what's happened in Notre Dame football the last couple of years, everybody's pretty happy with the way things are happening on the football field. In order to stay happy, you're going to have to continue to the dollars spent is going to have to continue to escalate. Notre Dame has to keep pace to a large degree.
The negotiations, I know some people don't like to hear it, so we'll give one thing that I never thought I would hear this, and I don't know what's official, but I've now heard it from two people. Tay Johnson took less so someone else could get more. And Tay Johnson didn't take less. I don't mean he took less than
Yeah, right.
I mean, Tay Johnson got a massive deal raise, but he could have had more, but he took less for a teammate to have more. So people that like to hear, good news, Tom Brady taking less to win Super Bowls. There you go. Tay Johnson, Tom Brady, Notre Dame football, 2026. Purportedly. I can't report on that because, it's really hard to verify these things. But that's an interesting thing for a guy like Tay Johnson because, he is the breakout player of 2025, right? From
yeah.
CJ Carr, but
man.
we knew CJ Carr was the breakout player.
Right.
So I think that's good news for Tay Johnson and for Notre Dame fans. We'll be back next Monday. We'll have a Notre Dame basketball game. We will have a Notre Dame Duke, possible number one Duke coming to Notre Dame next week if they can beat Michigan. Tim Priester.
We'll be yes, and we'll be if Notre Dame baseball beats LSU on Saturday, we'll be talking a little bit Notre Dame baseball.
But next Wednesday, we will also have, after Monday's podcast, we will have Aaron Henry. I almost said it again. I apologize to Aaron Henry in advance for the next time I do that. And I believe offensive incoming early freshman. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I believe it's offense with Aaron Henry and Brian Jean-Marie the next week against the defense. But until Monday, for Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of Football Scoop, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thank you for watching and listening. Irish Illustrated Insider.